Welcome, friends. Welcome to the Live Free Now show. I'm your host, John Bush, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. Really excited to be bringing you the show today. We are going to have a guest for the entire hour, the one, the only Ernest Hancock of Freedom's Phoenix. Known this gentleman, this rabble-rouser, this visionary for quite some time now. And one of the things that I appreciate about him the most is the big think. As you know, I'm a big fan of thinking big and outside the box and having big visions and ambitions. And he's definitely somebody that has been pushing the ball down the field towards the creation of a genuinely free society. So we're going to talk about his latest project, Occupy the Land, which is an ambitious program designed at helping folks, motivating folks, teaching people, empowering people to get back to the land, to create attainable housing using natural building materials, domes, and all that stuff. And we'll talk about his vision for the future. So let's go ahead and bring on our good friend, Mr. Ernie Hancock. How are you, Ernie? Uh-oh, it looks like he froze. We were having some tech issues earlier. That's why the show was a little bit delayed, our start. Okay, let me message him and encourage him to come back on. And in the meantime, you froze. In the meantime, I'll just rant and rave for you. So yeah, thank you so much for joining the program here at the Exit and Build, here at the Live Free Now show. We're all about exiting and building. There he is again. All right. Exiting and building, exit the system, build new systems. And that is something that Ernie has been promoting for a while, even before we started calling this concept exit and build. It's just an iteration of creating the parallel society, taking responsibility for creating freedom, abandoning politics as a means of bringing about change and doing the work ourselves. So let's bring on Mr. Ernie. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you, John. You know, I'm glad that we get to talk about this. This is kind of a culmination. If I knew when I was your age what I know now, I'd be doing what you're doing. I mean, you know, and I'm sure you probably feel that way too.
That's right. Yeah. You're an older version of me. I'm a younger version of you. Let's give the audience a little bit of we'll give the audience a little bit of your background if folks aren't familiar with you. I understand you've been involved in the liberty movement since the 90s, huh? It's a good run.
Late 80s.
All right.
Quick, I can do this in like 2 minutes without interruption. In the late 88, 89 or so, my father manufactured a camping trailer for touring motorcycles called the Alcan Traveler. It was really high quality. Back then, it was like $3,500. It was like $1 billion back in the day. And that was when the travel restrictions in Europe were coming down. And what that did is it allowed people to take their Goldwing motorcycles, go tour Europe, and pull their little camp trailer behind them. And it was really an awesome thing for its time, even now. And he got in a lot of Road Rider magazines, Wing World, that kind of stuff. And there was a lot of interest in him exporting to Europe. And I didn't want to work for my dad because I didn't want to work for my dad. But I go, you know, this is America, you know, export America and travel imbalance and all that kind of stuff, America. So I go, well, we need to check on this. So I wanted to get the trade duty for the tariffs and so on going in to different countries. Was it cheaper to go in to Spain or Portugal or, you know, Italy or whatever? And as I went through, I came across this law called the Omnibus Trade Competitiveness Act of 1988. Right when that had been done at the end of the Reagan administration. Well, this is all a George Bush global New World Order, heel clicking Sieg Heil to, you know, we're going to rip off the American taxpayer to make a bunch of other people money. And it was obvious to me what was going on. And I go, well, I was taught in junior high, you know, in the 70s and the Cold War and all that, fascism was the mixing of business and government to, you can't tell the difference. And this was written in law. So I started pursuing this, and after a few months, I could see what was going on. It was the New World Order or whatever before they even said it. And I'm how are they getting away with this stuff? It was election law. They were eliminating competition. You may choose from communist candidate A or fascist candidate B. Well, I knew by the time our children were our age then, in the late 80s, we had 4 children, and we're going, okay, by the time, 2012, 16 around in there, they're going to be grown, having families and that kind of stuff. And it's not going to be the same world. It's not going to be the same opportunities. So my wife and I chose to engage, and she gave me 10 years. And at year 2000, we had our own family restaurant, pizza restaurant, and so on. And I gave her the choice. I go, all right, we can stop and just worry about getting rich and making money and, using money as a freedom options, or we can try and fix this for our grandchildren to come out of this with the rebirth of freedom. That's where the name Freedom's Phoenix came from. Freedom's Phoenix, freedom's rebirth from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. That was the point. So as we got involved in activism in the 90s and 2000s and so on, I was constantly on their butt. I filed, challenged 44 election laws, became an activist, political activist, challenged 44 election laws all the way to the Ninth Circuit, did my own oral arguments, and it became clear to me that Constitution's Constitution, they didn't care. It was what they could get away with, all the kind of stuff that everybody knows now. In fact, I just had Patrick Byrne on yesterday, and we've been doing shows since '09, and it was just this realization that each generation, different socioeconomic people with different means, wealth, they're all coming to the same conclusion as you have. Man, it's just exit and build. I mean, it's like, and we're done. And we're going to occupy the land with attainable housing. I saw that was the solution. That was what was needed for us to bypass all of the control mechanisms. You don't want to, toil your entire life, and then you get to retirement my age and you go, now I'm going to build that log cabin in the woods on the lake and relax when you could have done it when you were 20, So I'm going, look, the technology now with communication, we have Starlink. I'm out and build a desert on 18 acres, and I got one neighbor within 5 miles. I mean, I'm out in, the Lone Prairie. So when you go to occupytheland.org, you'll see the videos and so on. You get an idea of what we're dealing with. But the point is that you use your youth and your energy to be able to build and for your family. It's like, Thomas Jefferson talking about the yeoman farmer. They were going, look, man, you just sustain yourself and you become an add to your community and you're good. And that's what we are trying to emphasize. If I can do it in the desert, I don't want to hear anybody's whining crap. I mean, seriously. So this has been a demonstration of us building up a family retreat and a nice place. And Donna and I love it out here. I mean, we get out here, it's an hour and a half to get to town to go, buy Portland cement. But we chose this location intentionally for all the supplies that are there, just wash sand and gravel and, rock and everything. And all I really need is Portland cement. And I got a tractor with all the attachments and all that. And we just building. Well, we did prototypes like you saw in the landing page in domes. I've been making domes for 15 years, as different structures when we go vending at festivals or I just really like that technology because it incorporates the most square footage with the least amount of material. So it's cheaper. But the point was, I don't care how you do it. It's just you're doing it wrong. Yeah, but you're doing it, So that was what our demonstration was of all the political activism that we've done. I'm a publisher of freedomsphoenix.com, hosted Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock since '03 on Terran Radio here for years before we went internet. And then the Love Bus Liberty Tour, I'm on the Love Bus, and we went to around the country during COVID, just making sure people understood resistance is not futile, and sign everywhere a sign, which is what we learned from the Ron Paul Lovolution. The Ron Paul Revolution 08 and 12, I'm the one that created the Lovolution logo. So We popularized that, showed people how to express themselves. Well, what do I say? I don't care. This is how you do it. RonPaulRevolution.com at the time was just, this is how you make the sign. This is the material you can get. This is how cheap it is. You get a big 4x8, for $1.25. I mean, come on. So, and it just exploded. Well, that technology can be applied to, you can't censor a sign. Sign everywhere, a sign. Somebody pissed me off. We got some signs coming. We got another project that's coming too on disclosure, for them disclosing everything. And that's one reason why we were talking to Patrick yesterday. This has been a wild ride for me. And what I came to understand is that nobody's going to give it to us. You have to take it. And you don't have to get combative or, engage the man, or, how many times can you get arrested? Several. But the big thing is what technology allows us now. It gives you the ability to have more than enough power. I go in 100% batteries, enough batteries to run my little bedroom air conditioner on the bus while we're building. So we're not uncomfortable. We have all self-contained everything, and we're building. Who built the roads? Me. That was 4 months, 150, 200 dump trailer loads of sand and gravel out of the washes in the land up here for me to, compact into the moon dust. So I had drives. I got a runway, 1,000-foot runway out here, because homie's going to be exploring the desert in my ultralight. So this is really a dream fulfilled for Donna and I. We've been looking for decades to find something like this, but we couldn't get this remote and be as self-sufficient as we wanted to be until technology allowed it. So energy is taken care of. We figured out the shelter thing. We're working on the water deal. We capture all the monsoon and so on. We got sand pond. Talk about how we do that. And, the food thing, the healthcare, transport, automation, education, the internet capacity with Starlink and other satellite. It's going to be many choices you can have. Starlink was just an example, but it came online right at the time, at the end of our Love Bus Liberty tour, that we were able to do the shows and communicate and be out in the middle of the freaking desert. When you see the drone footage of us out here, you go, damn, Ernie, you weren't kidding, And the only reason they even had a trail out here was open range cattle drives that they had. And there's some like old stone shacks that have been here since the 1950s, when they used to have hands living out here back then. Then they use RVs, and they have a cattle roundup about 1.5 miles from us that, once a year, twice a year, they bring them in for the winter and take them up north for the summer. But other than that, I got one neighbor, and it's just a peaceful existence. Oh, and this is the final thing I turn back to you. You're not far enough out until your Orion constellation has a penis. I did not know that. When you get far enough out, away from the city lights and so on, you'll see Orion's belt. It looks like he has a penis. There's like star cluster, there. And you see, I'm going, ooh, my Orion has a penis. So I looked it up. Sure as crap. People were talking about it and showing pictures and everything. You're not far enough out until your Orion has a penis. Just saying.
That's a good test. You got a lot of different tests. We'll ask you. Well, let's go ahead and ask you now. So part of it isn't just homesteading, though, right? It's about building communities, or it's about having a community of people, because you are very well tuned, as am I, with the pitfalls and challenges of intentional community. So you shared a lot about the vision and why it's important to occupy the land, these domes, these homesteads. What role does connecting with other people and working with other people play? And speaking of your Orion penis test, you have the Orion penis test. You have the privacy test, where even though you're not in favor of videos of cats being thrown off a cliff, you want a platform that won't censor cats being thrown off a cliff. I know there's that test. What's another test?
Let's talk about that. You can't leave people hanging on that one, man.
Well, tell us about these tests.
Well, the one thing, we knew that we did the Levolution in 2008. So then by 2009, we were being heavily censored. It was, before anybody knew the shadow banning and so on. I'd see on Freedom's Phoenix, videos that we'd have 4,000 or 5,000 people downloading or visiting that site, that video on our site. But the YouTube would say, oh yeah, it's 375. I'm like, right, So it was obvious to me that these platforms were being manipulated and used to emphasize whatever the hell they wanted, and not certainly revolutionary activity. So what we did is we go, no, I'm not playing this game. We need to have a platform and mechanism that we can store the data. And I just go on the show and keep screaming this. We need to be able to store and disseminate ones and zeros. How hard is this? What's your guys' excuse? Then here comes blockchain and all this other stuff. And we became aware, Derek, our super genius webmaster guy, he goes, Ernie, this IPFS, interplanetary file system sharing thing, I think this is what you're talking about. So for years, our shows all go up on IPFS. We have our own servers that meshes with, gazillions of servers all over the world. And the more people that access the file, the more copies there are, the faster it goes. So if you go to freedomsphoenix.com in the upper right, you'll see Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock show. You click in there, those MP4s are only on IPFS. Now, sometimes we take them and, put them on our channels. We kind of stop that. We might re-engage, that they're kind of changing. I've been talking to a lot of influencers. I know like you and Luke and everybody, they're like, hey, it's starting to open up a little bit. You might be able to use it. Even Ernie might be able to get platform, but we don't worry about that. And the one thing is, when we do community, I wanted to make sure that we had a mesh network. Now, one of the videos that you see this last March, John Sneisen from the Economic Truth is in Manitoba, and his day job is telecommunications, and he did it in the military in Norway and so on. So he goes, he's got a thing called outer.net, outer with 2 R's, I think, .net. And what he did is he created a mesh network that works using, and they were creating the software, but what hardware did we use? So we found out that you could get a relay station that does, like cell phones, and the entire system with the receiver dish, the sender, the relay we put up on a mountain 15 miles away, and another one from my friend Bob that's about 35 miles away. We wanted to get around the mountain that was over here to communicate with him, just as an example. So you'll see the video of us going up the mountain. I mean, it was like 3.5 hours hiking up well, somebody will steal it. I go, hell, if they go up there and get it, they can have it, because damn, But what happened is, at 13 miles of the testing, we got 200 megabits, megabytes, whatever, down and 100 up at 13 miles. And we go, ooh, we'd be creating a mesh network. Now, this is our own intranet that also, through the router, we can hook it to Starlink and go to other communities. So then that's why we are working with Xano and developers there and promoters, that the revolution decentralized, because I knew we were going to have the ability to trade in a private cryptocurrency on a private shopping. I buy, I sell, I need, I trade, I barter, so that you can get your next meal and your post holes dug with somebody that's got a backhoe in trade for zucchinis or something. So we knew we needed the community of communication. The problem is when you do intentional communities, you run into the social factor, because a bunch of us povertarians, I mean, we can't really afford to, do anything, if we don't pool our resources to get the, community showers and community kitchen of the community, and we're all going to sit around and watch sunsets, getting high every day, and nothing gets done. And it attracts we did the test for jackalope that is here in northeastern Arizona. For 10 years, I resisted. Alma Summer and I, created it, started it. She really took it and wanted to expand it and so on. But for 10 years, I'm like, nope, this is an experiment. Nobody's in charge, so everybody is. There's no organization, there's no fee, there's no payment, there's nobody in charge. You want it, you bring it, done. We had lots of fun. When you start organizing it, when you start having an intentional type of community, when you start having permission slips and where things go bad every time. And we call it Steiger's Law, as an activist that, here in Arizona in the 90s, long story. But what it was how it goes is whenever you create a organization around a movement or a cause, sooner or later, every single time, the organization becomes more important than the reason you created it. And it's because you get into structures and meetings and, voting blocks and, just crap. So what we understood, and, when I would speak at your events and different things we'd share, and I'd see Derek at different things and so on, I was always emphasizing you don't need or desire. I mean, you can do what you want. I mean, there's no central plan for freedom, but I'm advocating a unintentional community to where you have private property rights. This is mine. It's not yours. That may be yours, may not, whatever, but this is mine. Mine. My rules, my land, my thing, my tractor, my road, my whatever. So when you do that, then, you're responsible. And if you want to go to the barn dance or help them build a house or dig a ditch or whatever, volunteer, you go do it. Private, like a good neighbor, Ernie and Donna is there. But the problem is when you're obligated or they break something or who's responsible for, that kind of thing. So I just knew better from, just being involved in the liberty community and dealing with this kind of stuff, that you're better off having your own property in an unintentional community that you're an add to. And that's not necessarily a geographical thing, but it's probably better that, my closest neighbors, I got one within 5 miles. So there's not a whole lot of, anything other than, we are on friendly terms and other people and we know about each other and so on. But if we need help, and I offer my track, you guys need help? You need a, check dam put up, you want kind of, and I got the attachments, we have a hell yeah, I'm there, pick a day and we'll make it go work. And you can give me some duck eggs, which is what happens. Eggs is like currency out here, So I'm really emphasizing that a family that can get land from grandma, grandpa, people donate, you get an acre, 3. We had, and I think you visited our home that was in northern Phoenix. It was a 2-acre kind of, in Phoenix city limits in Northwest Phoenix. And it was called Sunburst Farms. And it was 2 acres, had horse property. People got cows, ostriches, sheep, horses mostly. That 2 acres, we only needed about a half acre to do all the stuff that we did. The rest of it was just open for the chickens and parties and so on. But we realized the 2-acre size was what gave us a buffer with our neighbors, that we could have parties, we could go late, we could be out and have a good time, build and do whatever, nobody cared. So that was the mindset that Donna and I had for our 4 children's families. That meant 5 lots, us and our 4 children, which was 10 acres. So we were looking for at least 10 acres and we found 18, all the better. So that was our mindset, to give our family 2 acres each for each family to be able to develop. And we had the technology, available to us in power and in the building. And then, a lot of the sites and channels on YouTube that we would follow, we'd go help and go to workshops and so on over the years. And it was a lot of manual labor. And I'm going, yeah, homie is, going to be in the 60s by the time I'm getting a tractor. This is the way that's going to be. And a mixing bucket, on the front, and we could do the concrete and everything. And then we needed to find a place that had the material on the land or can be trombled to separate the soil here. It's alluvial floodplain, and it has from one corner to the other corner rectangles like 1,700 feet, but it's a slight slope of like 10 feet so we could manage the monsoon water. So it was perfect for what we wanted, and it was remote enough that we had to have got at least 4 or 5 miles of road turned in from cow trail into a road so we could get our bus back here. That took me 4 months. Then I go, oh, you'll never, we mean never. You think I can't do, 30 feet a day? Multiply that times 4 months. I mean, so that's what we did. And now we have the equipment to do what we're doing. You go to occupytheland.org and you can see what we're doing. And you go through all of them, you kind of get the philosophy. But the how was not the point. It was the why. You need to quit delegating responsibility to somebody else, God forbid, politicians and law enforcement and everybody else, that delegating your responsibility as a husband, father, human being for raising your children, raising your food, supplying yourself, being an add to your community. Well, of course, everybody wanted Donna and I to be part of their intentional community because we work. We're hard workers and got capabilities and do absolutely. What makes you think I want to be part of your community? So we always had 3 questions. Question 1, what do I have to do? What's required of me? Whatever, just let me know. Question 2, what am I prevented from doing? What can't I do? You can't have, can't do, can't be, can't something. Okay. Well, you take that in consideration. And the 3rd thing, what's your conflict resolution? And a lot of people that we would talk to, never even occurred to them. We'll figure it out later. Whatever. I'm going, you are going to run into this problem. So the easiest way is just to have your own property. So that's what we did. So how you do the building, we have our friends up in Northeastern, Derek Slopey is in Maine and he's got plenty of forest. He and his son are milling some logs. Well, they build a lot of them with their own wood. Same thing with Jay Noon in, central New Hampshire. So and he has domes also. So there's just all kinds. Now for me, it's masonry. And one of the reasons is that whenever we add something, it's not going anywhere. I build an outdoor shower, a bathroom, whatever, or a common area, patio, 30-foot radius slab that we do for putting in, heated benches, rocket stove, fireplace, barbecue, pizza oven. I can build it halfway, come back 2 years later, and it hasn't degraded. Because here, you don't have to worry about ice and freezing and rust and that kind of stuff. But you got to worry about ultraviolet radiation. Anything synthetic, anything wood, it just beats the crap out of. So that's why they use Adobe. You have these, mud structures, basically what it is. And we do structured Adobe. We add a little Portland to it so it doesn't dissolve even if it does get wet. But you have structures lasted hundreds, if not thousands of years out here if it has a roof. So this is, the how, but that wasn't my point. My point was the why. The reason is we need to be more self-sufficient for what's coming. Just saying. So occupytheland.org is evolving not just into what we're doing, but the philosophy and the support and the recognition of all these other efforts such as yours, so that people know and are inspired by this, and they're not limited to just building with masonry and sand like we're doing. That's not the point. The point is technology has provided us with the means to do it. If you go to pirateswithoutborders.com, along the top, it has communication. All these little icons are links that go to over a decade and a half on Freedom's Phoenix as I edit different headlines that we put on there, which is hundreds of thousands, like 600,000 articles on there. And all the tech that decentralizes down to the individual, the family, community kind of stuff in all these categories, like different kind of building materials and methods, different anything, communications, food production, all that kind of stuff. We put into these categories, and on Occupy the Land, we have in technology all those categories, and you click in it and you can go through. Holy crap. There's hundreds of different entries on different things you can do in other projects. That's the point, has always been the point for Donna and I in doing Freedom's Phoenix. It is the inspiration that you can break free, cut the barbed wire. It's all up here. It's a revolution between the ears. You have been a big inspiration for a lot of people. And I'm so glad that we're doing this. And I've been interviewing a lot of people. And of course, we're going to be doing a show soon. But it's just now, this 10 days ago, when we were at Ron Paul's 90th birthday party, the old revolutionaries, got the band back together. That's when we really launched it. We've been doing it for over a year, that building up all these videos and everything, but I haven't really made a big deal out of it. We just turned on that Saturday the banner ads on Freedom's Phoenix, even promoting our own Occupy the Land thing, because we weren't ready. I just wanted to, boom, wow, man, what the hell, Ernie? And I'm going, yeah, we've been working on this because we understand there's a movement coming. And you've been spearheading a lot of this stuff, but you can't go on the internet talking about building, homesteading, whatever, without getting, blasted with a gazillion things that are available. Well, that's why we're doing it. And when, as we die, and we get older, we put our land in a family trust, and our kids are kind of, they'll never move out there. Yeah, right up until they need to. So they're doing well, they're fine, but it's always nice that mom and dad, grandma and grandpa have a place so you don't die. Just saying.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's awesome that you're really doing it, and taking action is first and foremost. I mean, you got to have an idea and strategy and where you want to go, but a lot of people, they just really come up short on the action piece. And it's because it takes real work to build this. It's not easy either. The plans are out there. It's figure outable, but it takes work, and you're going to make mistake after mistake after mistake. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are afraid of failure, but you never really fail until you give up. Can you talk about the importance of ideas? Because you're not only taking action and laying out strategies, but you've always been an idea guy trying to shift the culture, like the Revolution logo, for example, and just the concept by that was more like there's a side piece to this Ron Paul campaign. It's not the campaign HQ and the corporate campaign you donate to. It's the revolution, the levolution, the people, the grassroots, and let's inject the ideas of like real freedom, voluntarism. So how important is it for us to just push ideas and permeate ideas and try to get that mind virus, that idea virus to spread? Because Lord knows the enemies of freedom are definitely spreading some pretty ugly and toxic ideas. So we got to do the same. Why is that important, and how do we get that message out there?
One of the big things is just your personal health. Stop eating junk. Stop. Just get your mind and your brain so it can function. I mean, it's just very basic, fundamental. They always go like this. When I first started doing radio here out of Scottsdale in the Valley in 2003, they go, who are they, you tinfoil hat conspiracy nut? I mean, who are they? And I go, that's a good question. I'll tell you. There are those that just want to be left alone, and there are those that just won't leave you alone. That's who those are. They're the ones that won't leave me alone. And if what kind of American are you? Leave me alone. That's the kind of American I am. So it was very simple for me to be able to focus on one thing: general public opinion. Everything that we did, all our campaigns, everything was to inject a bumper sticker slogan. Leave me alone. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? You're still voting? Freedom good, government bad, 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 bad. I mean, I got gazillions of them, and all these were different campaigns. What came out of Ron Paul's thing, we had a lot of us around, long story, but it comes down to this: what would be the next thing that we would promote? So I got thetruthwillsetthemfree.com. Who? Well, we're having artwork done of little boys and girls in chains, and kind of the truth will set them free. So kind of Epstein reference. Release the list, transparency. How many UFOs are there? I mean, whatever. Just tell us everything. I'm so sick and tired, and that's why the slogan on Freedom's Phoenix is uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. Since we started it in 2005. And we had the concept in 96. We knew that this was going to be an internet thing. But what happened was we knew it was going to really take off when you could get video on the internet. At the time, I'm a 30-something-year-old young guy going, well, when the video hits the internet, they go, oh, you stupid kid, what do you know? That bandwidth of you can't and you don't know, and kind of, I go, yeah, whatever. When it happens, well, in 2005 was when all of these video platforms started appearing, like YouTube. YouTube wasn't necessarily the biggest one until, they monopolized it and Google bought it and whatever, But at the time, we go, hey, you can do video? I go, that's it. Start Freedom's Phoenix. Here we go. Because I knew the real work, the real stuff was going to come from people like you. So I'm going, okay, here we go. And the Levolution did not disappoint. In the beginning, when January of 2007, there was a story one Friday morning. I go on, and my senior editor on Freedom's Phoenix had put the story up that Ron Paul, created a blue ribbon panel to, talk about maybe doing exploratory of running for president kind of thing. So I knew who to call, and I called Kent Snyder, which was one of the guys we did for scheduling, because Ron Paul had spoken at our Freedom Summits before, and so we knew each other. And I'm going, is this true? And they go, yeah. If we, whoa, it's true. Well, talk to the hand, man, because I know what you guys want. Join the campaign, get involved in Republican precinct kind of phone. No, hell no. I don't care about that. My 2006 campaign for Secretary of State here had still voting with a V for voting was a V for vendetta with a big question mark. Now that was the primary sign, but I had a sticker kit that had two of them, and I had this extra vinyl in that format that was unused, and I didn't want to waste it. And that's where the Levolution logo came from. And that's been since like the Beatles. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, Levolution. That's why they had that logo. And later, after we created the Levolution, they named that bar, that club in Vegas, the Levolution. And, and Russell Brand used it for his book and all that. And I don't care, whatever. But the main thing was I used that as, the Levolution, a revolution that's peaceful. There was no graffiti. There was no, marking up stuff. There was no Antifa crap. There was no violence. There was no fires. It was a Levolution. And that's what pissed the bad guys off. And it was spontaneous order. That's why I didn't want to join the campaign. I said, all I want to know is where you're going to be in the next speaking thing or whatever, where I go for that. We'll be there a week before. I'll get the local young activists and so on. We'll make a crap load of signs, put them up and say hello. Well, that's what happened. So it was the people that did it. And just like with Jackalope, I'm going, look, nobody's in charge, so everybody is. You can take the load piece out, do what you want. I want to tell this one example. There were some activists from Denver that asked me for the load. They wanted to start that. Yeah, whatever. I sent them all kinds of stuff. Peace, this is how to do it. Material, go knock yourself out. About a couple of weeks later, another group called me and said, hey, we wanted to, absolutely, here's your package. The first group hey, we were first and they're doing it wrong and we're not and they shouldn't and I'm like, wow, really already? I go, no, this is not a permission slip certified. No, hell no. This is whoever wants to do it. So that's what, like Memphis, I love theirs. They go, it's Memphis style. Elvis Presley and Ice-T. So it was just so much fun, and that decentralized nature of it is what made it take off and become so ubiquitous around the world. So when 12 came in 2012, they tried to organize it a little bit more. It didn't have the same flavor, but Ron Paul, we could put our heads down and plow because his philosophy was so clear and clean on this for decades. So when you had him say, look, we got to do this now, or we're going to lose the meaning of these words, our heritage. We're not even going to understand what freedom means. Freedom is slavery kind of thing. It's, Big Brother, Orwell speak. So this was when humanity needs this kind of thing, it gets it. And we're at another level now. And it's, and I think we're at that, it's a tipping point again. And here it comes. And those that can be self-sustaining, those that can, weather the supply chain, weather the lockdowns, they would never lock down the entire America, would they? They already did. If they can, they are. And they got demonstrated that it worked for them. They can. Then they did the mail-in voting. They also, so if they can, they already are. So this is why I need to make sure people understand we can, that we are able to sustain ourselves. We can educate our own children, grow our own food, source our own water. Hell, I'm in the desert. I'm showing we can do it rain. So I'm just, so this is very important to me to inspire generation next. There's always a generation next. Well, this generation next, there's not that many of them. The birth rate has dropped tremendously. There's a chart we just had up. It was over 53% or something of 30-year-olds that were married had homes. Over 50%. Now it's under 10. And I'm going, what the crap? So when you get Klaus Schwab and World Economic Forum coming out and say, you'll own nothing and here's your happy shot, I knew exactly what they meant. They did not want you to have your own land, your own home. So when we wanted to get as far out in the desert, build my own damn road, so I don't have any tie to the man. They don't even know. We had one property we really liked, but it was right at the end of where they were grading the road, and they took responsibility for landowners out there and the farms and all that kind of stuff. And we were right where the grader would turn around. He'd see me over there. And I'm going, nah, I don't want the man. We'll go a little further. Well, we went a lot further, and the man doesn't, hell, they don't even come. We got to get a four-wheel drive and whatever. So this is, I'm not looking for permission slips. I'm not asking the king permission to whatever. So, I'll, be a good doobie and, pay my property taxes, which is like nothing here, but it's only to keep the man at bay and my extortion fee for having it in a trust that they can't get it anyway. So I'm not seeking permission. I'm being a good neighbor. We're taking care of business, but I'm in a totally different mindset because I feel what's coming is going to get a lot worse than people think. It's going to have a shorter duration of problems than I think people think, because after a year and a half, humanity marches on. They will do what they have to do to survive and take care of their family. And the world is full of good people, way more than bad, but the bad are there. And what I didn't realize until just the last few years, all the politicians that I dealt with, all of the prosecutors, all of the lawsuits that I filed, all law enforcement, all that, there was something wrong with a lot of them. I couldn't figure out what it was. There was something wrong. It was they were sociopaths. I didn't understand what that meant. They didn't have the capacity for empathy, love, compassion. They didn't give a crap what happened to someone else. They were in these positions of power because they were sociopaths. It's like you got to be a pedophile as a minimum job requirement to be a congressman. I'm going, what the hell is wrong with these people? And you find out it was either through environmental or biological or whatever that you have them. They just don't care. Literally, many of them can't care. It does not compute to them that they give a crap about what happens to someone other than them not going to jail. So this is what we're dealing with. And it's only like 4-6% of the population, but those are the ones that get the shiny badge. Those are the ones that are the bureaucrats, the lawyers, the judges, the whatever, that wants to explain it to you. Well, I'm going, nope, 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 nope. So that's where the community comes in. It's those of us that have demonstrated our willingness to set our lives to the side on hold to activate ourselves and influence our neighbors and friends and family to go resist, because it's not futile. And we're starting to see that now. And it's becoming worldwide. And you can see it in this Occupy the Land movement, whatever you call it, homesteading, whatever alternative, it doesn't matter. They occupy the land. Now, a lot of people think, just go out in the desert. Yeah, do it. Well, I don't care. But, I think probably preferable you own the land. But, it's property rights. That's my thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's critical. We're going to pause to hear from one of our sponsors. And I know, Ernie, you're going to appreciate this one. So, hey, guys, I want to encourage you to check out Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. They have a monthly precious metals subscription. And the beauty of it is that the precious metals they send you are always tradable precious metals. So, of course, gold and silver are valuable for preserving and growing wealth. We all know the dollar is losing value all the time. But let's not forget the threat of central bank digital currencies, the existing financial surveillance. That's why for over a decade now, I first learned about silver dime cards from Ernie. That was a big inspiration. And as soon as we learned that silver dimes and half dollars and quarters, it's called junk silver. These coins, 1964 and earlier, they have 90% silver. So I would go around to farmers markets talking to the vendors saying, hey, can I buy some of your veggies with some silver, have a pocket full of silver? Now, oftentimes they didn't know what the heck we're talking about, but every once in a while you got somebody that's like, oh yeah, anything to stick it to the Fed. I just recently was at a Mennonite farmers market in Tennessee, and I bought $52 worth of vegetables with the very precious metals that I received from Wise Wolf. You can check them out at livefree.academy/wolfpack, livefree.academy/wolfpack. Use coupon code LFA, and they'll hook you up with a couple pieces of junk silver on your first order. Now, this is the shipment I just got in the mail. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. I'm on the Warrior Wolf. It's $125 worth. I don't have my pocket knife with me. Let me tear this open. They send it in a discreet package, so nobody knows it's precious metals. All right, so let's see what we got. Some goodies. I always have fun doing this every month. Looks like we have a gold back. That's 24 karat gold, little sheet that's basically like a paper currency, essentially, but it's real. And there's tons of vendors and businesses that are accepting it. They even have a directory on their website. What else do we have here? Oh, sweet. A couple walking Liberty silver ounces. These are very valuable. They're worth a little bit more than the value of silver, and they're known worldwide. And then we have what looks like a couple Canadian silver coins, maybe Charles III. Oh, so these are British silver British coins, 2 silver British coins, and a silver dime. And that, my friends, is my $125 a month order. There's a very, very low premium, a competitive premium on this product. So most of what you're paying for is the actual tradable silver itself. The idea is to hold on to some of it for growing and building wealth, protecting and building wealth, but also get out there and find other freedom businesses and vendors that are willing to accept it in exchange for goods and services. And in this regard, we can really accelerate the creation of the parallel economy. They're good friends of the freedom community. They sponsored the Land Summit. Again, you can go to livefree.academy/wolfpack, livefree.academy/wolfpack to sign up with your subscription today, starting at like $50 a month or all the way up to $1,000, $2,000 if you want to go big. And make sure that you use coupon code LFA in order to get yourself a free, some free junk silver on your first order. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Back to Mr. Hancock. Tell us, Ernie, because you are a very well-rounded exit builder, like all the topics at the top of Pirates Without Borders. How important are alternative currencies? And why don't you tell us about what motivated you back in the day to help influence the creation of these silver dime cards?
We understood, this is one thing that happened during the 08 revolution with Ron Paul, is that for the first time, the Federal Reserve became a presidential issue. For decades before, libertarians were going, hey, man, it's not federal, it's not reserve. We just want to tell you how this really works. And then the role of inflation and how it creates wars, it allows for them, all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until that campaign people started to understand what was really going on. So what we did is right after in 09, we started doing, or at the end of 08, we started doing junk silver, these silver dimes and quarters and so on. But those junk silver was really just 1964 and earlier, when dimes used to be 90% silver. So they got driven out of circulation because people, would hoard them. And so that's what, bad money replaces good kind of thing. Well, we did the dime cards, and on the back, you had logos on the front and, a lot of different promotion and business and whatever we did with that. And we did with Daily Paul, we did a Ron Paul version with them, and the profit at $5 a piece or something back when they were like $2, $3 or something in silver. I think we did $10. Within a week, we wrote a $10,000 check to Michael Nystrom for Daily Paul. And they're like, whoa, what the crap? I'm telling you, we sold like 8,000 of those in a day. And we did like a couple other different versions. We had, and matter of fact, when Ron Paul at his birthday party, last weekend, when he got done, we had 3 designs with him on it. And I was like, sitting at the chair right next to the podium. I just handed 3 copy versions of it to make sure he had them, and then he put it in his pocket. And, I'm sure that was a smile. Well, what happened is you hear the phrase, a dime a dozen. That's a dime a dozen. What the hell does dime a dozen mean? And we realized what it meant. Eggs were a dime a dozen if the dimes were silver. And I'm going, ooh, I get it. As inflation goes, the silver content, and really, if it was at the real value of silver, it'd be more. But so I understood what was going on, that precious metals were important. Well, right when we were doing the silver dime cards and that started taking off, we were introduced to crypto. The Liberty community, they really hit the Levolution hard. We got this new, Bitcoin thing going on, the people's money and all that. Well, what happened was we could see immediately, and by 13, it became clear it was eventually going to turn into GoldmanSachs.gov coin, be programmable money, and you can put your retirement in it and prop up the dollar, and you got to buy treasuries, and Trump did the whatever, and it's ours now. So we could see there was something going. We need privacy coins. Well, Bitcoin didn't want to do that. So that's where Roger Ver, we became big supporters of what he was doing. Eric Voorhees, I trust him. A lot of the guys that were in it for the right reasons. Well, they are now supportive of a project called Xano, which is very focused on privacy. Now, Aaron Day out of New Hampshire we're working with, and that's why you saw the endorsement of Xano in our Occupy the Land thing, because it has privacy coins that are also creating shops that are decentralized agorist markets that don't report to whatever. So we're going, yep, this is how we're going to do, because you need a crypto, especially when you're doing community to another community in another state or something. Sending gold and silver is not as easy, but you still need. Patrick Berna had him on yesterday. He's known as the Bitcoin Messiah. And I was talking to him about where you think this is going. He's going, yeah, I'm more in the precious metals now. So you pimping precious metals, that's in line with a lot of the people that understood the power of crypto and that those were going to come try and take it. So when I went to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas last month, at the invitation of, Ross and Lynn Olbrook, we go there, power to Ross, I'm glad you got out and all that kind of stuff. But it was obvious to me that a lot of the people that I love and support and were big proponents of crypto and Bitcoin have gotten extremely wealthy because of it. Well, that's their motivation. Yeah, but it's a store of value. And I go, man, the white paper even said it was digital cash. It was supposed to be for us trading, not hoarding. This is supposed to be part of an ecosystem. That was the point. No, well, it's worth a lot of money now, though. So I can see that the digital cash aspect of crypto kind of went away. Well, a lot of these projects that I support are focused on that it is private people money. And whatever its value is derived from how much people money it is. So this is where my mindset is. And I'm afraid that, with, quantum computing, you might crack it, whatever, and I don't even care. That's not the point. My thing is the surveillance and the programmability of it and incorporation and them shoehorning Bitcoin into the legacy banking system. Because if they can, guess what? They are. So I saw a whole bunch they are. And I'm going, man, I don't think people see how bad this is. So the and goldbacks that you showed, I'm a big goldback fan. A good friend and supporter is a big investor in the actual company that has the technology. So we saw this coming way back when, to have actual physical gold. You melt it down, the bills, it has that much gold in it, maybe a little bit extra. And you want to audit it? Here, I'll show you how to audit. Give me a blowtorch and I'll audit it for you. So you burn away the plastic and there it is. And these are, I think, the future. Actual physical, gimme, touchy-feely, roll around McDucket to where I have the precious metals. So I've always been a silver stacker. I was like, get a bunch of crypto. Well, good. I get to buy more silver. So those of us that understand the definition of money and its use and why are going to be, gravitating or certainly glad that we got a bunch of precious metals. I'm just saying. So, but you still need the advantages of communication in the internet and the ability to use cryptos in trade. So I'm cool with that, but I'm not so concerned about the price of it as I am the ease of use of it, how fast it works, how cheap it is to do transactions, how secure it is. All these are the features, and one by one, they've taken them away from Bitcoin. Just saying, it may shoot up, whatever, but that wasn't my goal. You're muted.
It's trading outside the system and number going up. It's just a side benefit. I have those dime cards. I gifted you one of our Live Free Academy silver ounce rounds that we had minted. and you gifted me these nice silver dime cards. These were great activist tools because you can put a cool, catchy image on the front, and then you have a dime. This is a mercury dime, and people are like, what's that all about? And it's an educational tool. And then you flip it over, and it shows, it's hard to see, it's a little blurry, but it shows the value of the dime depending on what the value of silver is. So silver is a little under $40 last time I checked. So this dime is not worth 10 cents, which is the face value. It's actually worth $2.86. But all right, we're at the end of the program today. Ernie, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing. I told folks this was going to be a good one. They're going to get to see how excited you are about all this stuff. So I always appreciate you.
We're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. And you're always driving the ball forward, and you're always, inspiring and motivating, and really appreciate how action oriented you are. It's rare these days, and it really does make a difference in this movement. It's the only way, really.
Oh, I got to say this, John. Having you being an activist during all this stuff and seeing you and young family going through, I mean, I remember interviewing you at Pork Fest one time, and tears came to my eyes, just comparing you to the young Donna and I in our family, that there's other generation next coming up, that I don't have to have my finger on the button all the time, but Shawshank Redemption, man, you just keep hammering, you won't make it out. We won't get to escape. And that's what this logo is about. She's cutting the barbed wire. Here we go. So thank you for being an inspiration to our generation.
Oh, well, right on. Well, one day I'll be in your shoes, and I'll be having a tear interviewing some young person, probably still at Pork Fest.
I encourage that.
That's right. All right. Thanks a lot, Ernie. Appreciate you. All right, folks. The website is occupytheland.org, occupytheland.org. It's Ernie and Donna's latest project, encouraging people to acquire some land, build natural homes. Their focus is domes. It doesn't have to be domes, but the idea is get out of the city, get onto the land, build natural homes, get off the grid, connect the communities with decentralized communication tools, trade outside the system using alternative currencies. Sounds a lot like all the work we're doing here. So it's great to have Ernie on the Freedom Team driving the ball forward for decades and decades. He's always an inspiration. Okay, folks, thank you so much for joining us. livefreenow.show is the website if you want to check out our other shows in the past, and also join the podcast, livefreenow.show. And I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I don't know if it's being suppressed or whatnot, or just not being shared as much. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share the video. We're trying to get this message out. There's a whole lot of other freedom programs and conspiracy talk, but a large majority of them are like amping up the algorithm by spreading doom and gloom and fear and nonsense clickbait. Now, don't get me wrong. We'll try to make the titles as catchy as possible, but our message isn't like the world is going to end. It's not, you get better run for the hills. It's not, let's all praise and worship Trump, and we know that that's popular now, or let's be critical of Trump all day, and that's going to get the views. And one thing, it's like, it takes work. You got to take action. And I know that's hard for some people. So if you're watching and you watch a lot of videos and you follow the emails and you go to the events, I really want to encourage you to come up with a plan, come up with goals, a plan, and put some things into play. And understand it's not going to be built overnight, but with enough persistent action and with a group of people that have your back, you will be able to not only make a difference in your life, but you will help us to leave a lasting legacy of liberty for future generations to come. This is the Live Free Now Show, bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. Until next time, stay free, friends. Bye.